You know that feeling when there's just this constant background hum in your mind? Like it's not even necessarily tied to a real crisis.
Right, yeah. Just that shifting noise.
Exactly. Just this indiscriminate noise. One day you're completely consumed by, say, money worries, and then the next day it's your health.
Oh, and then before you know it, you're agonizing over, I don't know, something you said to a coworker like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. It is like your brain is this heat-seeking missile just searching for any target to attach all that dread to.
It is an utterly exhausting way to live.
Mm.
But I think what's so striking is how many people just, accept that persistent dread as their permanent baseline. They just convince themselves it is their personality.
Which is wild, right? But that exhausting, shifting background hum isn't just a quirky personality trait. So today's deep dive into the clinical realities of generalized anxiety disorder, or ADA, is about understanding why your brain gets stuck on that frequency.
And more importantly, how to actually change the channel.
Yes, exactly. We are pulling from two really complementary sources today. We have this incredibly validating video script that just captures the raw, subjective experience of this anxiety.
It really does.
And we're pairing that with an intensive research-backed clinical PDF workbook from My Safe Therapy called Understanding and Managing GD, which gives us the hard science and the actual tools to fight back.
Right, because combining that emotional reality with the clinical neurobiology is really the only way to dismantle the massive societal myths surrounding this condition.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that myth, the idea that being a worrier is just a character flaw, is so damaging. You hear it all the time from like well-meaning friend. Oh, you just need to relax or stop overthinking it.
Yeah, take a deep breath.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But our sources are unequivocal here. GD is not a personality type. It is a recognized mental health condition. But where is the line? I mean, everyone worries, right?
Sure, absolutely. Everyone worries.
So when does normal, everyday stress cross over into a clinical diagnosis?
Well, to find that line, we really have to look at how the DSM-5 criteria frame the behavior. Normal worry has a distinct lifespan.
Okay. Like what?
Like, it's usually tied to a specific tangible stressor. So an upcoming job interview or a pending bill. And once that stressor is resolved, the worry just dissipates.
Right. The threat is gone, so the alarm turns off.
Precisely. The clinical threshold for GAD, however, requires excessive, disproportionate worry that you find genuinely difficult to control. And crucially, this has to be your reality for more days than not, over a period of at least 6 months.
Wow. 6 straight months of that shifting, indiscriminate noise.
Yeah. And it's not just happening in your thoughts either. The reason it feels so uncontrollable is rooted really deeply in the brain's neurobiology.
The hardwiring of it all.
Exactly. People experiencing GAD actually have heightened reactivity in the brain's threat detection center, which is the amygdala.
So the brain's alarm system is literally jammed in the on position.
It really is. It is continuously scanning for threats that just aren't there. And because that alarm never shuts off, the body gets flooded with stress hormones.
Right.
Over time, this constant state of high alert leads to a cascade of physical responses.
Wow.
I mean, researchers even find elevated systemic inflammation markers in the bodies of people with GAD.
Wait, really? Inflammation markers?
Yes, physical markers in the blood. Your immune system and your nervous system are reacting as if you were under physical attack 24/7. It's a whole body experience.
That is intense. You know, reading through the cognitive symptoms in the workbook, it felt exactly like having a web browser with like 50 tabs open.
Oh, that is a perfect analogy.
Right. And they're all playing different warning sirens, and you just cannot figure out which one is making the noise. You get this catastrophic thinking, severe indecisiveness, this paralyzing fear of just making the wrong choice.
And the demographic data behind who actually experiences this is really eye-opening too.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because it affects about 2% of the global population, which is a lot of people.
It is. Around 3 to 4% in the U.S. And women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with it.
But the statistic that actually made me stop reading and reread the page was the median age of onset.
Ah, yes. Around 30 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I always assumed anxiety was something you either had from childhood or you didn't. Like, wait, if the median age is 30, does that mean you just suddenly catch GD on your 30th birthday like a cold?
No, not at all. It is definitely a slow burn.
So it's been building up under the surface.
Exactly. The neurobiology of GAD develops gradually. It is often this complex intersection of a naturally sensitive temperament, maybe some stressful life events, and learned childhood coping mechanisms.
Okay, so like a perfect storm over time.
Right. Imagine growing up in an environment that felt unpredictable or demanding. If you learned that constantly anticipating problems was the only way to stay safe, your brain essentially adopts worry as its primary survival strategy.
Ah, I see. It is a defense mechanism. You learn to just brace for impact so you never get caught off guard.
Precisely.
Yeah,
But the human brain just isn't meant to sustain that level of hypervigilance forever.
right.
So by the time someone hits their late 20s or early 30s, the accumulating pressures of adult life act as an accelerant.
Like building a career, managing serious relationships, financial independence, all that stuff.
Exactly. All of that pushes that underlying survival strategy to a breaking point.
That makes total sense. The coping mechanism eventually buckles under the weight of adulthood and becomes the disorder itself.
Yes. Which brings us to one of the most insidious aspects of how this disorder sustains itself.
Ah.
It's a concept the sources call meta-worry.
Oh, right. Worrying about the fact that you are worrying.
On the surface, yes, but it actually goes deeper into something called magical thinking.
And magical thinking.
Yeah. Many people with GAD harbor this subconscious, completely false belief that their worrying is protective.
Oh, like a shield.
Exactly. They think, if I worry about every possible terrible outcome, I can somehow prevent those bad things from happening. Or at the very least, they won't be surprised when disaster finally strikes.
Wow. So giving up the anxiety actually feels incredibly dangerous to them. It feels like taking off your armor in the middle of a battlefield.
That is the perfect way to describe it. It creates a deeply entrenched psychological loop. You worry, the terrible thing doesn't happen, and your brain falsely credits the worry for keeping you safe.
Man, that is exhausting. And if the brain is constantly pumping out these alarm signals and the body is flooded with inflammation and stress hormones, you cannot sustain that indefinitely. The system has to break down eventually.
Oh, it absolutely does.
And researchers have actually mapped out what that physical and mental breakdown looks like, showing how symptom severity fluctuates based on stress levels. The workbook visualizes this using these color-coded zones of escalation, which I thought was brilliant.
Recognizing these zones is perhaps the most vital first step in management, because it allows you to spot the biological escalation before your brain completely defaults to crisis mode.
Okay, so let's look at the yellow zone, the early warning stage. I was really surprised that the very first alarms aren't necessarily anxious thoughts. They are incredibly physical.
Right, because the body often registers the threat before the conscious mind even does. In the yellow zone, the first thing to fragment is usually sleep architecture.
So not just feeling tired, but actual sleep changes.
Exactly. You start taking much longer to fall asleep, or you wake up feeling completely unrefreshed because your brain just couldn't enter deep, restorative sleep. You also see a steady rise in unconscious muscle tension.
The classic jaw clenching, or like realizing your shoulders have been hiked up to your ears all morning.
Yes. And cognitively, the yellow zone manifests as decision paralysis over just minuscule things.
Like what to wear or what to eat for lunch.
Yeah. Your working memory is so burdened by background processing that choosing a lunch spot suddenly feels like this monumental life or death calculation.
And if you don't catch those physical cues, you slide right into the orange zone.
Which is a rough transition.
Yeah, this is where the internal stress starts actively sabotaging your external life. You see a huge spike in avoidance behaviors. You start canceling plans with friends or dodging phone calls because just interacting feels like too much effort.
And the physical tension turns into active distress,
Mm-hmm.
like waking up with nausea before work.
Right. And the orange zone is also where concentration completely collapses, right?
Yes. Because your amygdala is demanding all your brain's resources to scan for threats. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical, focused part of your brain, is just starved of energy.
So you might find yourself reading the same email paragraph 4 times without comprehending a single word.
Exactly. And if the stress continues unabated, you hit the red zone. Complete system failure.
Man, so what does the red zone look like clinically?
The red zone is clinical crisis, severe functional impairment. This is where someone might be entirely unable to get out of bed or care for themselves. The physical symptoms mimic severe medical events: chest tightness, shortness of breath, this profound feeling of impending doom.
Terrifying.
It is. And tragically, this is the zone where we see a sharp increase in substance reliance. People will turn to alcohol or unprescribed medications just to chemically force the nervous system to power down.
I look at this progression and it is impossible not to think of a car's dashboard. Like the yellow zone is your check tire pressure light. It is a warning.
Right.
But the red zone means the engine is actively on fire and the wheels are literally falling off. Why do so many of us just put a piece of tape over the yellow light and keep driving? Why don't we stop when the jaw clenching starts?
What's fascinating here is that it's a testament to how adaptable human beings are, even when that adaptation is destroying us.
Yeah.
People ignore the yellow light because cognitive symptoms like catastrophizing and physical symptoms like tension headaches and gastrointestinal issues become so normalized.
You just get used to it.
Yeah, the person literally forgets what a baseline of calm actually feels like. You tell yourself, oh, I'm just a bad sleeper, or my stomach always acts up when I'm dizzy. You adapt to the pain. You don't realize the engine is overheating until the flames are coming through the hood.
And a burning car doesn't just endanger the driver either. It threatens everyone on the road. Driving past those yellow warning lights spills over into every single functional area of a person's life.
It's the collateral damage.
Exactly. Let's look at that collateral damage, starting with the area that takes the heaviest emotional toll, which is our relationships. The Turk research from the year 2000 that they cite in the workbook shows that individuals with severe GAD perceive their romantic and social relationships as highly impaired.
Well, think about the core mechanism of anxiety. It demands absolute certainty. But human relationships are inherently ambiguous and uncertain. You cannot ever know with 100% certainty what another person is thinking.
Right.
For a brain with GAD, that ambiguity is intolerable.
Which leads to those intense reassurance-seeking loops, I guess. Repeatedly asking a partner, are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Are we okay?
And the tragic irony is that this behavior creates the exact conflict the person is terrified of. Constant reassurance seeking exhausts the partner. It requires them to constantly manage two nervous systems instead of just their own, which eventually builds resentment.
The hypervigilance is a massive factor there, too. Like if your partner is just quietly doing the dishes, a non-anxious brain sees someone doing chores, but a GAD brain interprets that neutral silence as a threat.
Oh, absolutely. The internal monologue is, they are slamming those cabinets, they are furious with me, I need to fix this immediately.
It's exhausting just talking about it.
And this connects directly to how researchers understand emotion dysregulation in GAD, like in the Minin studies. To use a mechanical analogy, people with this condition have worn-out emotional shock absorbers.
Okay.
They experience emotional bumps in the road much more intensely than others, but they lack the internal brakes to slow that emotional vehicle down. They cannot self-soothe.
So as a result, social and intimate interactions just become draining because they require an enormous amount of neurological energy to navigate.
Exactly.
And that energy drain doesn't magically stop when you clock in for your shift either. The workplace is a massive casualty here. The Hoffman and Wang research shows GAD is one of the most financially costly conditions for employers, largely because of the struggle to manage work-life demands.
Well, the modern workplace is practically a custom-built trigger factory for GAD. You have constant evaluations, ambiguous emails from bosses, endless metrics, and this manifests in two major ways.
Right, the first being perfectionism paralysis.
Yes, someone will spend 4 hours formatting a spreadsheet that should have taken 20 minutes purely out of the catastrophic fear that a minor typo will somehow get them fired.
And the second is presenteeism, which is when you are physically sitting at your desk, your eyes are on the monitor, but your mind is so completely consumed by a shifting rotation of worries that your actual productive output drops to zero.
It is a massive drain on working memory, and we see the exact same cognitive hijacking in academic settings. A 2020 longitudinal study out of the UAE and recent Science Direct data have shown that heightened anxiety severely degrades working memory capacity.
It's like a computer's RAM. If 90% of your RAM is being used to run background anxiety programs, you only have 10% left to actually write your essay or study for your exam.
Exactly.
It's no wonder those studies consistently show that students screening positive for GAD, especially females, suffer from significantly lower GPAs.
The cognitive hardware is simply overloaded. You cannot retain complex information when your brain truly believes it is under imminent threat.
The sheer scale of the collateral damage is heavy. But here's where the story shifts. Because the sources don't just leave us staring at the wreckage of our working memory and our relationships. Right. They offer highly practical, evidence-based tools to actually rewire the hardware. And I want to start with a couple of the immediate behavioral hacks they suggest. My absolute favorite strategy from the workbook for combating that workplace perfectionism is the 80% rule.
Oh, it is incredibly effective. The rule dictates that once a task is 80% complete and meets the basic functional requirements, you just submit it.
Because Pushing a project from 80% to 99% rarely improves the actual utility of the work, but it always spikes your anxiety.
Right.
It's a forced short-circuiting of the catastrophizing loop. And for the academic side, they recommend the Pomodoro technique, working in 25-minute sprints, but with a very specific twist.
Yes, the twist is key.
During the 5-minute break, you don't open Instagram. You do a conscious physical body scan.
That physical intervention is critical for managing the yellow zone symptoms we talked about earlier. By stopping to take 3 deep breaths, noticing where your jaw is locked, and consciously dropping your shoulders, you are actively preventing the physical tension from accumulating.
You are clearing the cache on that browser with the 50 open tabs before the system freezes entirely.
Precisely.
Those are great daily habits. But what about the deep structural rewiring? How do we use clinical research to fundamentally change how the brain interprets threats?
Well, the absolute gold standard for structural change is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and specifically a targeted technique called cognitive restructuring.
Which is pretty famous, right?
It is. Some refined protocols by Hirsch and Matthews targeting negative interpretation bias have achieved recovery rates as high as 74%.
74%. That is a staggering success rate for a mental health intervention. How does cognitive restructuring actually work on a biological level?
It forces the brain to migrate activity from the emotional reactive amygdala into the logical analytical prefrontal cortex.
Okay, so making the logical side take the wheel.
Exactly. When a catastrophic worry hits, instead of spiraling, you catch the thought, write it down, and literally put it on trial. You become the defense attorney and the prosecutor. You ask, what is the concrete, undeniable evidence that this fear is true? What is the evidence against it?
If my best friend brought this exact fear to me, what logical advice would I give them?
Yes, you are forcing the logical brain to power up and override the alarm system.
But there is another technique mentioned in the workbook that completely fascinated me. Stimulus control, commonly known as worry postponement. The idea is to designate a strict 10-minute worry window, let's say, 2:00 p.m. every day. When an agonizing thought pops up at 10 a.m., you write it down and you tell your brain, I hear you, but we are not dealing with this until 2:00 p.m.
Right.
It is like making a calendar appointment with your anxiety so it stops interrupting your meetings all day. But I have to push back on this. Wait, are you not just bottling up the terror until 2:00 p.m. and then practically guaranteeing you'll have a breakdown mid-afternoon?
That is the most common concern people have when they first try it. But the neurological mechanism at play here is fascinating. You are not suppressing the emotion. You are actively starving the amygdala of the immediate panic response it craves.
Starving it.
By writing it down, you validate the thought. But by postponing the reaction, you train your brain's neuroplasticity to decouple the thought from the biological stress response.
Because the thought and the panic don't have to exist at the exact same time.
Exactly. You are breaking the habit loop. You are teaching your nervous system that a worry can exist without demanding an immediate 5-alarm evacuation. And what almost everyone finds is that by the time 2:00 p.m. rolls around, the emotional urgency of that 10:00 a.m. worry has completely evaporated. When you finally sit down to look at your list, your logical brain is in charge.
That is a massive paradigm shift. You are reclaiming your schedule from the anxiety. But if we are talking about neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to heal, we have to talk about the physical foundation that makes any of this possible.
Yes, we do.
The sources highlight some fascinating recent daily diary research, a 2024 PMC study over 50 days where they tracked patients, mapping out how different symptoms triggered each other day by day. And they discovered a massive domino effect, with one specific symptom sitting at the absolute center of the web.
Sleep disturbance. The data reveals that sleep is the hub of the wheel. Poor sleep is both a consequence of the anxiety and the primary fuel that drives the severity of everything else.
So if you aren't fixing the sleep, everything else is just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Precisely. If your brain is sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex is compromised. That means your cognitive restructuring isn't going to work as well because you lack the mental energy to put your thoughts on trial.
Your emotional shock absorbers are even weaker.
Right. The clinical takeaway is that rigorous sleep hygiene is not just some trendy self-care routine. It is a foundational, non-negotiable medical treatment for JDD.
Which perfectly sets up a very necessary reality check. We have discussed incredible tools today, the 80% rule, putting thoughts on trial, scheduling worry windows, but the clinical materials are very clear. GAD is a medical condition. You cannot always just life hack or workbook your way out of it.
No, You cannot. And there is no shame in that. The clinical data strongly supports that the most significant and lasting improvements come from combined treatment.
Therapy and medication.
Yes, a structured psychotherapy approach, like CBT, often paired with appropriate medication to lower the biological baseline of that amygdala response. Full remission is absolutely possible. Studies tracking patients over 2 to 5 years show high rates of complete recovery, 25% at 2 years, 38% at 5 years. But it requires structured, consistent clinical effort.
So, if you are listening to this right now and you have been living with that constant, exhausting background hum of dread, we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We have moved from the subjective feeling of being overwhelmed to the concrete reality of neurobiology. GAD is not a character flaw. It is a highly prevalent condition where your brain's threat detection system is caught in a loop.
And we have explored how that loop degrades your working memory, exhausts your partners, and breaks down your body.
But we have also laid out the mechanics of how to break the loop. By recognizing the physical warning signs in your yellow zone, forcing your prefrontal cortex to evaluate the evidence, actively starving the amygdala's demand for immediate panic, and ruthlessly protecting your sleep, you can rewire your baseline.
You really can.
There is a line from the video script we reviewed that I want to deliver straight to you, because it is the core truth of this entire deep dive. You are not just a worrier, and there is a clear path forward. You did not consciously choose this neurobiology, but you absolutely have the power to seek out the right clinical tools to change it.
And as you think about taking that first step, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked earlier about meta-worry, that secret subconscious armor, that magical belief that your constant anxiety acts as a shield, preventing terrible things from catching you off guard.
The magical thinking.
Right. But consider what we've unpacked today. If the science clearly shows that this persistent worry is actively destroying your concentration, sabotaging your career, and emotionally isolating you from the people you love, is your shield actually causing the exact failures you're trying so desperately to prevent? What would your life actually look like if you finally put the shield down?